Almost 1 million years ago, something happened that nearly erased humanity from Earth. Our ancestors fought to survive, and then their numbers collapsed. The climate was unstable, landscapes were changing, and finding food could mean the difference between survival and hunger. Only a surprisingly small number of humans remained. A failed hunt could leave an entire group hungry. And sometimes, humans weren't the hunters, they were the ones being hunted. But the greatest threat may have been the planet itself. Rivers shrank, lakes vanished, food became scarce. So humans moved, following animals, water, and safer environments. Around 900,000 years ago, our ancestors may have experienced a devastating population bottleneck. One possible explanation was extreme climate change that made huge areas difficult to survive in. Water became precious, and competition grew. Then the climate shifted again. Temperatures dropped, and humans needed shelter from the cold and darkness. Inside those shelters, one of humanity's greatest advantages burned quietly: fire. Fire provided warmth, light, safer food, and a place to gather. But survival wasn't just about strength. It was about learning. Humans worked together, passed knowledge to the next generation, cared for the injured, and learned which plants could help them survive. Every mistake carried a cost, and the world kept changing. Animals migrated, humans followed rivers, and unfamiliar dangers appeared along the way. Sometimes the smartest choice wasn't fighting, it was knowing when to walk away. When large prey disappeared, humans searched for smaller animals, plants, roots, fish, and anything else they could eat. Because sometimes, there simply wasn't enough food for everyone. Some groups vanished completely, leaving only tools, ashes, and traces in the earth. But somewhere else, another small group survived. Children learned from their elders. Footprints revealed where animals had gone. The sky warned them of approaching storms. Their environment was their classroom. And sometimes, the warning came too late. They waited inside their shelter as the storm raged outside. Then morning arrived. The storm had passed, but the landscape had changed. Yet somehow, these tiny groups kept moving forward, carrying the knowledge of those who came before them. And this was the brutal pattern of survival. The world changed, and humans had only two choices: adapt or disappear. But there's another reason this period is so fascinating. Some of the biggest clues come from the DNA inside us. Genetic studies suggest our ancestors may have passed through an extreme population bottleneck around 900,000 years ago. Humanity's ancient family tree may have come frighteningly close to breaking. Yet somehow, our ancestors survived. Generation by generation, the survivors recovered and eventually spread into new territories. Different populations adapted to different environments, shaping the long road toward us. But what actually caused the collapse? Scientists still don't have one simple answer. One major possibility is climate. Temperatures changed, rainfall shifted, and entire ecosystems transformed. When plants changed, animals changed. And when animals changed, humans suffered too. A failed hunt could mean several days of hunger, forcing them to search farther for food and water. Survival rewarded groups that could adapt quickly. Under pressure, intelligence became more than an advantage. It became survival. Even something as small as keeping a fire alive could make the difference. Fire provided warmth and protection during freezing nights, while better shelters helped humans withstand brutal weather. Stone tools mattered too. Knowing how to make them could mean the difference between eating and going hungry. With better tools and teamwork, successful hunts could feed the entire group. But humans were doing more than surviving. They were building something bigger. Children learned skills from their elders, carrying generations of knowledge forward. They remembered where dangerous animals lived, which plants were safe, and where water appeared after the rains. Sharing knowledge became one of humanity's greatest survival advantages. Slowly, the population recovered. Yet Earth wasn't finished testing them. Food moved, rivers shifted, humans followed. They entered forests, reached coastlines, discovered new food sources, and adapted to unfamiliar environments. But being alive wasn't enough. They had to keep learning, moving, and adapting to every new challenge the planet created. Their survival depended not on one great invention, but on thousands of small decisions repeated across generations. And each generation that survived carried that knowledge forward, making the next one slightly harder to erase. Then colder conditions returned. Glaciers expanded, forests retreated, and familiar landscapes disappeared. For generations, humans endured a brutally cold world. And somehow, despite every collapse, climate shift, and dangerous journey, they were still here. Yet genetic evidence suggests our species may still carry the legacy of that ancient bottleneck. Nearly a million years later, their descendants would number in the billions. Those early humans had no idea they were shaping humanity's future. They simply woke each morning, found food, protected their children, and tried again. Survival wasn't one heroic moment. It was thousands of tiny victories. One child surviving another winter became another link in the chain. Generations passed. Climate changed, animals disappeared, and landscapes shifted, but the chain held. Over immense stretches of time, humans adapted. Tools improved. Hunting became more strategic. Resources were preserved. And cooperation allowed groups to accomplish what individuals couldn't. Still, the wilderness remained dangerous. Sometimes, survival depended on one person staying awake while everyone else slept. Eventually, the ancient population crisis faded into history. But evidence remained buried in the earth: stone tools, footprints, bones, DNA, and geological clues. Archaeology, genetics, geology, and climate science now help reconstruct what happened. Yet the mystery remains incomplete. We may never know exactly how many survived, where they lived, or what caused their decline. Perhaps the real question isn't why humanity nearly disappeared, but how it continued. Maybe survival belonged not to the strongest individuals, but to groups that could cooperate, adapt, learn, and protect one another. Nearly 1 million years passed, and those survivors became part of the ancestry that led to us. So when you look at humanity, you're seeing the result of an incredibly unlikely chain of survival. Somewhere nearly 900,000 years ago, the odds were stacked against our ancestors. Their population may have fallen dangerously low, but they stayed alive. One generation became another. One journey became another. And somehow, the chain never completely broke. From a population pushed toward extinction came every generation that followed. Their world was harsh, uncertain, and constantly changing. Yet every successful hunt, every protected child, and every lesson passed between generations gave the next group another chance to survive. We aren't here because our ancestors had an easy world. We're here because, for hundreds of thousands of years, they kept surviving. And perhaps the greatest mystery isn't how close humanity came to disappearing, but how it refused to.